Hey everybody, welcome back to another video where today we're going to be analyzing the entire Ukraine front line. Let's not waste any time, let's just get into it. I think we'll go clockwise and start up by the Kupiansk direction. A lot of things have changed in the past couple months or so. The numbers on both sides have become equal at about 600,000 each, and Russia has been doing a major winter offensive in about 6 major areas along the eastern front. One of these first ones is up here by Kupiansk, where they've been doing attacks into Sinkivka recently and with some unconfirmed gains. This front got to where it was back in September 2022 when the Ukrainians did the counterattack in the Kharkiv region and pushed the Russians back across the Oskil River. Through November of 2022, the front started to become more dormant and had some of the least activity in the whole region. The Ukrainians began to send some of their newer and least experienced troops in this region to gain some experience in just the feel of combat. There was a point where Russia took advantage of this down in this area by Riots, but I'll get there in a second. This area up by Vilshano, Persotravnova, and Sinkivka is probably one of the least active areas of the front line, even though Russia is trying to do an offensive here. But the defense by Sinkivka has been holding for a really long time, and the defense in this area is held down pretty well. The next area is over here by Orlanske and Yahidne. In about November and December 2022, this Kislivka group of settlements right here was Ukraine's main goal to take out. Their goal was to push through this Kislivka area and then attack Nizhnya Duvanka to expand their control into the Russian Svatove line. However, complications with winter and need for the equipment in other areas of the front line caused the progress here to slow down. Okay, I just paused the recording to see if my gain was peaking. I'm sorry if for some reason this gets louder. I got a new mic that's a lot better, but my stand, it doesn't go low enough, so I just have to hold it up to my mouth, so it may just get closer and it may end up getting like way too loud. But the Ukrainians were able to take over Yahidne, Zatishne, and Orlanske as well, but these were reclaimed by Russian counterattacks through the end of 2023. Recently though, the Russians have pushed into the settlement of Davydiv and Kremmina. Wow, I did not mispronouncing these settlements. Seems like the pressure is on for this area, and if the Russians are able to push north of Orlanske, the fate of Kislivka and tokarivka may be uncertain. Apart from this, the area has been pretty dormant because the defense has been holding in other regions. This area right here by Riots is an area where the Russians had actually pushed across this Zherabets river right here, which is the river that runs through all these settlements. They took the settlements of Nova Yehorivka, Serhivka, and Nadia. The Ukrainians were able to reclaim Nadia and Nova Yehorivka, but Serhivka is still under Russian control as far as I'm aware. The combat in this area has pretty much died down, but there's still occasional clashes. The next area where Russia's trying to attack is this Torske Makivka. I'm just going to call it the Le Mans front because Le Mans is the major settlement in this area. Russia's made small gains in the fields by Plashanka and in the direction of Terny, but we can't really tell if these will be translated into anything bigger yet. Overall, this northern area is one of the lesser, I don't want to call it less important, but it's one of the less active and more stagnant fronts in the entire war. Going a little south of there, this settlement Belarus has been like the biggest problem for Russia in this entire area. Ukraine has a line of defense in this area that's been holding since summer of 2022, which goes from Belarus to Verkhnyo-Kamyanske, which for some reason has disappeared on this map, into Spirne, across Vosele, and into Rozdolivka. This is back when Russia was trying to take Siversk in July of 2022, and this defensive line was able to get fortified enough where it pretty much made that impossible for Russia. Belarus was actually recaptured right before the Kharkiv counteroffensive in September 2022, and the Russians have been unable to take this settlement back no matter how hard they try. The problem with taking Belarus is that they'll be able to flank Verkhnyo-Kamyanske, and then that could lead to more problems in the future. But so far, the area from Spirne to Belarus is held securely for a year and a half. Bakhmut is where the biggest changes occurred in 2023, I'd say. In January of 2023, the front line looked something like this red line right here, but then Wagner was able to get their big breakthrough in Yakovlivka, which allowed them to push further out, and then they were able to flank the main Ukrainian northern stronghold of Soledar. And then over the next 5 months, the northern defense had to fall back and back again until Bakhmut was able to be taken. In June and July of 2023, Ukraine was doing a counterattack in this region and managed to retake Klishivka and Avdiivka. Russia has actually made a significant amount of progress south of Bakhmut, and it's endangering the Ukrainian positions in Klishivka because if they're able to have control of this hill, they will have control over Klishivka. Right now, it's up to the defense to stop this from translating into bigger gains. The Russians had also pushed the Ukrainians back out of the... Okay, I deleted it. The Russians had also pushed the Ukrainians back out of this Berhivka reservoir, indicating that they may be trying to do a bigger push into Chasiv Yar. The main problem with the Russians advancing into Chasiv Yar was when the front line used to look like more like this, any advance out this way would just be kind of shot from both sides and all sides, and it'd be way too hard. But what Russia's trying to do is trying to even out the line to give them a better vector of attack into Chasiv Yar. The main areas that Ukraine can use to their advantage are these hills right by Ivanivske, the Donetsk Canal right here, which stopped Russian advances for a while, another hill, and just the general industrial areas inside of Chasiv Yar to prevent the Russians from coming in. I'll probably do a video later explaining Ukraine's defense network that they've created inside of Donetsk, and it's become a lot more fortified over the past year or so. Heading south from here, this area has generally not been that important throughout the war. This blue line right along here, it was about there or so, was the front line before the 2022 full-scale invasion began. Back in 2014, Russia created two separatist republics inside of the Donbass, and they had fought with the Ukrainians for 8 years trying to establish breakaway republics. This ended up creating a big line of fortifications along the area where they'd fought, which eventually turned into a stalemate. And a lot of these fortifications are still holding because they've just been developed so extensively. The next area is where most of the action has been happening recently, which is Avdiivka. Avdiivka is the most fortified town in all of Ukraine. This settlement was right along the battle during the Separatist War, and it developed some strong fortifications that Russia didn't even try to take head on. As the war went on, they slowly started to flank the Ukrainians until they got into this area right here by Krasnohorivka, and then over the past 3 months have been trying to break through it, and they've taken major casualties. In later December, Russia was able to take control of this area west of Krasnohorivka, which acted as one of Ukraine's last lines before Avdiivka may be flanked. The main goal of Russia is to try to take Orlivka, because if they take Orlivka, then Avdiivka won't have any secure roads to get supplies into. This will be a big problem because if the troops can't be replenished with equipment, the Russians can just start attacking and shelling and eventually take it. There's still a couple settlements in the way, which is Stepova, Berdichi, and Semenivka, but if they do make it to Semenivka, it's likely that they'll just have fire control over this road, which means they can see when trucks are going in there, which will allow them to fire on it, which is basically the same thing as having physical control over the road. It's the Ukrainians' main goal right now to prevent the Russians from going past Stepova, and it seems like they've been able to slow down their momentum enough. Russia has recently made some gains going north of here, but that doesn't endanger Avdiivka too much. If Avdiivka falls, Ukraine's going to have to reallocate a lot more resources to preventing the Russians from advancing in this area. But the geography here is in Ukraine's favor with a lot of random rivers everywhere, which will act as natural barriers that'll make defense easier for Ukraine. And Ukraine has been preparing for the fall of Avdiivka for a while, so they've been preparing fortifications in these settlements already. If the Russians take Avdiivka, their next goal will likely be to head towards Pokrovsk, while also sending some north to head up to Druzhkivka and then Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. Another dangerous thing about the fall of Avdiivka is that they'll be able to access this area by Toretsk, and they'll be able to flank this area, which are some of the most fortified areas, causing Ukraine to have to put even more troops on this front. But right now, it seems like Avdiivka may take longer than the Russians want to fall, and if they're able to hold out until about March or April, the mud will make it much harder to advance in this area, allowing Avdiivka to get some time to rest. The next major area where the Russians have been conducting offensives is Mariinka. Mariinka is another frontline settlement from the Separatist War, meaning it had a lot of fortifications. And Russia has fully captured Mariinka, and by Mariinka, I mean the 3 molecules of wood that are still left there that weren't destroyed in the shelling. The Russians couldn't advance in this area, so they just blew everything up. I hope editing me isn't lazy and is putting pictures on screen. It shows the true extent of Russian devastation inside of this area. And from there, that's most of the major news. Earlier in 2023, around February, Russia was doing a lot of assaults in this direction of Vuhledar, because Vuhledar is a really strong fortification. There's a coal mine hill right here that a bunch of snipers are on, and even though it looks small, it's a pretty packed settlement with a lot of good fortifications inside of it. The Russians lost a lot of troops trying to take this settlement, and it resulted in pretty much nothing. In June of 2023, the Ukrainians had successfully whittled down this front right here. The Russians used to have this big bulge by Velika Novosilka, but the Ukrainians were able to push them back a lot. They eventually got halted up by Zaporizhzhia. Another small thing, the Ukrainians recently have pushed the Russians out of Chervonopopivka, which just increases the safety of Huliapole, which is another big supply settlement in this area. One of the last big areas where a lot of stuff has happened is this area by Orihiv. The Russians actually tried to do a big offensive up through here, and they said that they captured a lot of stuff, but it was like a 100% cap. And then the Ukrainians were able to push the Russians back to about Robotine. They broke the main Russian lines of defense in this area by Verbove, but it was just such a small and narrow area that they weren't able to translate that into big tactical success. They got close to taking Novopokrovka, but then the winter set in and the counteroffensive largely slowed down. The last area to talk about is Kherson. After the November 2022 retreat by Russia, in April 2023, we're establishing positions in the Dnipro Delta, which is the area in between the two banks of the river. But then the Russians blew up the Novokakhovka Dam, which caused a lot of the area to flood. But then after they recovered from that, the Ukrainians started to build their positions back back up and have crossed at this area by the settlement of Krinky and one of the areas over here by Kozachi Lahiri. There have also been raids into Kozachi Lahiri itself, and it seems like this is an area that the Ukrainians use to try to draw some Russian troops away from the front, because if they don't move troops from the front over here, the Ukrainians can just start taking everything. Now, some trends that I think we're going to see over the next year or so, I think we're going to see more Russian gains. This is just because Russia's going on the offensive now and the manpower is about equal. I think Ukraine's going to be shifting to more of a defensive approach for pretty much this whole year. I don't think there's going to be a major counteroffensive like there was in 2023, but that doesn't mean Ukraine is going to stop fighting, because I think they're going to fight in a different way. What Ukraine has been doing with their drone industry has been working really well. They cause so much damage to the Russian Black Sea Fleet and aviation inside of Russia itself. They do attacks on Russian infrastructure in Moscow and Volgograd and Voronezh, and causing as much attritional damage to the Russians through their drone program has become Ukraine's main goal right now. Look, that bird just disappeared. Oh no, there it is. Damn, that's a big hawk. That is a big hawk. Oh shit, there's another hawk. Oh, it just kicked him off the tree. Oh damn. Oh, you just let yourself get stuck up like that. Oh my god, okay. Oh, he's just sitting there all cool, like he doesn't even care. He's watching him fly away. Wow, that's badass. Yeah, anyway, I think we're just gonna see a slower pace of combat overall. I don't think you'll see me title any videos like major breakthrough in this area or whatever, but not everything can all happen at once too. And with things going on in the Middle East with Israel and the Houthis and everything, attention is being divided in some areas, which is slowing aid to Ukraine. With Donald Trump saying that he could end the conflict in one day, it's unsure of if the presidential election would influence the aid that goes to Ukraine. Personally, I think aid for Ukraine is not a partisan issue at all. I think it's just an American issue. Everybody should be wanting to send the Ukrainians aid to defend and weaken our enemy, which is Russia. I think Donald Trump and Joe Biden have two fundamentally different views of Russia and China. I think Trump views China as a way more powerful threat than Russia, and then wants to try to build a stronger or better alliance with Russia to counter China, because if Russia is allied against China with America, that would severely weaken China in their whole alliance going on. But I think with what Joe Biden has decided to do with Ukraine has probably permanently ruined our relationship with Russia. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because Russia was likely going to take advantage of Trump's kindness to grow their own strength, because deep down they are insecure about America and NATO as a power. After the Yugoslav wars and Putin becoming president, I doubt there will be a formal alliance between the United States and Russia until Putin leaves office. Biden sees this and has a distrust of Putin, which caused him to link Russia and China together as a bloc rather than things that could be separated like Trump did. And I think Trump has to realize the reality of the situation, because I don't know if we're going to be able to go back to being how we were with Russia back in 2016 or so. I'm not going to get political because I don't even really care about American politics. Even though I live here, whoever's president, nothing changes in my day-to-day life. I can still walk and work out and do all the stuff I love. But I care about how our actions affect the world and abroad, so I want the person who's going to be best for furthering the interests of the free world. Alright, and that's the end of the analysis of the video, and I guess the aid dynamic too. I didn't think I was going to get into that, but I guess I did. So if that's all you care about, you can go ahead and click off, but I'll explain why I haven't made a video in about 3 months or so. This is something that I've been feeling for a long time, but I've never really expressed it. Focusing so much of your life on a war and something negative like that, it's kind of a surefire way to make yourself miserable. When all you're reading about is death and destruction, it can really start to take a toll on you. And unfortunately, there's some people who they can't just disconnect from it like I can. They have to actually live through the conflict, and it does affect their life. But since I was able to disconnect from it, I chose to do so for a bit. I lived inside of the news so much that all my update videos, I've never scripted one of them. Some of the videos where I talk more in depth about specific events, I'll script those. But I was just so inside of the news that I already knew everything and I could just go off the top of the dome. But the problem is, when you're constantly checking the news and being in your phone, I felt like I just wasn't connecting with people. I wouldn't talk to people, so I could be on Telegram in class and looking at what the latest movement or equipment stuff was going on with, and it was rough on my social life. In November, when I stopped making videos, that was the best month of my life. I was able to connect with people like never before, and it was partly in due to just not having that sort of portal of news to escape into. I tried to counter this by just reading it all like right before I'd make a video, but it felt like I was just kind of overloading myself and I didn't actually understand what was going on. I noticed a dip in the quality of my videos, and I wasn't able to just talk like how I used to. I just felt like I was being more surface level. Eventually, I was just disconnecting more and more from it until the point where I just wasn't even looking at it in December and the first part of this month. But now, I think I'm at a place in my life where I'm able to handle everything, and I think I can start making videos again, and I just want to do a service to the people who've been with me for so long. So you know what I'm saying, bitch, it's FreeK comeback season. I've already got some interesting collabs planned. I'm sorry this audio is only in your left ear. It's a little difficult for me because I like to take an 9-hour walk every day, and I do CrossFit mostly 6 days a week. Well, I'm probably not supposed to, but I do it anyway. I also make music, and I'm a rapper, and that takes a little extra time out of my day to do YouTube. I do a lot of different things in my day, and it makes it harder and harder to do this every single day. But I've been coming up with ideas about how I'd clear out time, and I'm just gonna say Mondays and Wednesdays I should probably be able to get a video out. Tuesdays and Thursdays is probably unlikely. Fridays I can't. So I'll try to upload at least semi-regularly. I'll aim for 3 a week or so. And with the slower pace of combat, it may be harder to make videos where I talk about a lot. So the videos may become shorter, or they may be more surface level, but I promise I'm doing my best to update everyone on what's going on. It's been good to finally say this because I wrote a song about this, I think back in July last year, but I think I've detoxed from all the news and everything, and I think I'm ready to bring it back and start making more videos. And if I do end up randomly disappearing from everything one day, I want to let my long-term subscribers know I got a haircut. All right, and that's all I got. I'll see you guys later.